You have learned to call anxiety as if naming it made it yours, as if it were a trait, a flaw, a permanent mark on your character. Over time, the feeling stopped being something you experienced and became something you are. You say it quietly to yourself. I am anxious. I am this way. But notice what happens when the feeling fades. Even for a moment, you are still here, intact, watching. The self you believe was fragile does not disappear with attention. Something remains underneath the noise. This is the fracture most people never question. They confuse a passing state with their identity. They protect the label, even as it exhausts them. In that confusion, the struggle quietly begins. At some point, the mind decides the feeling must be stopped. It tightens. It watches itself. Every thought is inspected. Every sensation questioned. The body reacts to this pressure with more tension, more unrest, and the cycle deepens. You begin to fight your own inner movement, not with anger, but with fear. Fear that if you do not control it, something will break. So you resist, you suppress, you brace yourself against what is already inside you. This is where exhaustion is born, not from anxiety itself, but from the quiet war you wage against it. A war fought alone. A war the mind cannot win by force. Slowly, another truth begins to surface. The pain is not coming from the feeling alone. It comes from what you are holding on to while the feeling is present. A demand for certainty. A demand for safety. A demand for control over what cannot be fixed in place. The mind reaches forward, trying to secure the future, try to lock reality into a shape that feels acceptable. When it fails, tension appears, not as punishment, but as consequence. This clinging has an old name, shichaku, attachment. It is subtle. It hides behind reason and caution. Yet it tightens the chest more than fear ever could. Anxiety rises where the grip is strongest, not to harm you, but to reveal what you refuse to release. Long before these feelings were given modern names, they were already understood, not as disorders, but as signs. In quiet temples and empty training grounds, men observed the same unrest you feel now. They did not rush to escape it. They watched it. To them, suffering did not mean something was broken. It meant something was being resisted. Life was seen as movement, seasons passing, breath entering and leaving. To cling to one moment was to stand against the current. A swordsman learned this early. A monk learned it through stillness. Both understood that the mind hardens when it forgets impermanence. The body follows. What you face is not new. It is ancient, a familiar tension that appears whenever the human mind demands that what is always changing must stay the same. Attachment is not a single thought. It is a structure built over time, layer by layer. The mind attaches to outcomes, to roles, to images of how life should unfold. Each attachment feels reasonable on its own. Together, they form a cage. You cling to an idea of who you must be, calm, capable, unshaken. When reality does not match this image, tension appears. You cling to an idea of how things must go. When the path bends, the body reacts before the mind can explain it. This architecture is precise. The tighter the attachment, the narrower the space the mind allows itself to move. The narrower the space, the more any disturbance feels like a threat. Anxiety grows in this confined space, not because danger is present, but because freedom is restricted. In old teachings, the problem was never the emotion. It was a grasping, the refusal to allow life to move as it does. The moment the mind says, "This must not change," it places itself in opposition to reality. No sword strike creates tension like resistance. No enemy is as relentless as the one created by the need to hold on. The mind does this quietly, patiently, until the weight becomes unbearable. There comes a moment when the pattern is seen clearly, not as a theory, but as an experience. Anxiety does not arrive without cause. It appears where the grip tightens, where the mind refuses to loosen its hold. In this light, the feeling changes shape. It is no longer an intruder. It is a signal, a quiet indication that the mind has moved away from balance, that it has stepped out of alignment with the way things are. The old warriors understood the state well. Mushin, a mind that does not cling, not empty, not passive, simply unbound. When the grip softens, the body follows. Breath deepens. Awareness widens. The realization is subtle. Anxiety was never the enemy. It was a messenger. And like all messengers, it only speaks when something has already shifted inside you. To stand without grasping is not an action you perform. It is an inner posture. The body may remain still or may move, but inside there is space. Sensation is allowed to rise and fall without being chased or pushed away. The disciplined mind learns to witness. Heat in the chest, tightness in the jaw, the quiet tremor beneath the breath. Nothing is corrected. Nothing is judged. Attention remains steady, like a blade held without tension. This is presence. Zanshin, not alertness fueled by fear, but awareness that does not abandon itself. When the mind stops reaching forward, it stops collapsing inward. It stands where it is. In this space, anxiety loses its power to command. It can appear, but it no longer dictates movement. The mind is no longer trying to escape the moment. It is no longer negotiating with it. There is strength here. Quiet, unseen, a strength that does not depend on control, only on staying. Time is no longer something to conquer. It becomes something you move with. When attachment loosens, each moment is allowed to arrive and leave on its own terms. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced to stay. The old sense of urgency fades. Not because life becomes predictable, but because the need for certainty weakens. There is a quiet respect for impermanence. Mono no aware, the understanding that all things pass, and that this passing is not a threat. With this understanding, endurance changes its meaning. You no longer endure by hardening yourself. You endure by yielding without collapse, by allowing loss, change, and uncertainty to exist without resistance. This is not indifference. It is clarity, a steady acceptance that removes excess suffering from the passage of time. What remains is a calm companionship with life as it unfolds, moment by moment. There is nothing left to fix, nothing to chase away. What you call calm was never something to be created. It was always present, waiting beneath the effort to control. When the grip loosens, even slightly, the noise softens. The mind returns to its natural state, not empty, not silent, simply at rest with what is. You recognize this feeling. You have known it before, in moments when you stop reaching, when you stop resisting, when you allowed things to be exactly as they were. The path does not end with answers. It ends with remembering. Remembering that you were never broken, only holding too tightly. And in that release, quiet returns on its own,